Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Sarah Pacaro, Rapid Transformational Therapist, and today I'm going to talk about whether to ignore the narcissist or not ignore the narcissist, and if you're doing it right or if you're doing it wrong, and how do you know there are some things you can ignore and some things you can't ignore. So ignoring a narcissist on paper seems really simple. Someone will just say, well, just ignore them. Okay, but when it comes to it, how do you know to ignore the narcissist the right way? Because there's certainly times where it's extremely beneficial, but many times you end up getting it wrong and it's extremely damaging when you do. So you can probably relate to the following situation where you stand there motionless, frozen in your trauma response. You're frozen. You don't know what to say. And the narcissist is there, like hurling these insults at you, telling you all these things, and you're like, and you're crying, and your body is just frozen. So in this case, you should defend yourself, you should fight back, right? Well, the problem is, that is exactly what the narcissist wants. That's why they are hurling these insults at you, because they are trying in their power, everything in the power, to get you to fight back so that they can continue to suck you into this narcissistic, toxic vortex. So you resolve to, you know what? I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to walk away. And you give them the cold shoulder, and you turn and you don't respond for a while, or you're texting and your responses back are just they're like one-word responses. Surely that'll teach them a lesson if I gray rock them and I just one word, okay, whatever little emoji you want to throw at them. So in reality, this doesn't work, because a narcissist does not process the experience of emotions as the average person does. So you're processing and experiencing emotions. You're saying, you know what? You do not see what you just did to me. They don't see what they just did to you. They ran you over with a Mack truck and they kept on driving. And you're like, wait. So if you're going to ignore the narcissist and then think that they're going to go away because they'll get it, this will not play out in real life the same way that it has in your mind. Your mind has this story of how it's going to play out. It's not going to play out that way. In fact, in the long run, it will more than likely backfire. There's a very specific time and place to effectively ignore a narcissist. Unfortunately, most people get it wrong. I have gotten it wrong a million times. A million. And that's how I know. So now I know how to effectively ignore him, but it didn't come easy and it didn't happen overnight. So there's still complete liberation from narcissistic abuse as much as possible. And with working in yourself and your inner triggers and where, when, how, and why this all came to be, you can get to that place. But first, let's talk about what happens when you ignore a narcissist and how this misapplication of the gray rock technique can backfire on you, because that's what everyone says: go no contact or gray rock. And if you have spent any amount of time researching, learning, discovering about narcissism, you've more than likely come across this method, the gray rock method, and I share it to do it. And yes, it's effective, but there are times that it does work and doesn't work. So the gray rock method suggests that people being impacted by narcissists behave like a gray rock: dull, uninteresting, boring. Your responses completely lack emotion, and you're just you make yourself as uninteresting as possible. And then narcissists, they can't let their ego fix from occupying your attention. They need your attention. You are their source and their form of supply. Your attention, your reaction to how they treat you is their source and form of supply. So eventually, if you gray rock or you go no contact, Eventually, they get bored and they seek attention from elsewhere. Well, the goal is to continue, if you have to communicate with the narcissist without falling into their trap. This is particularly important if you have children together and you have to communicate with them, but you don't want to continue to fall into their trap. And we've done recent videos on this. This is baiting. They're trying to hook you back in constantly by hoovering you, and this gets you into this endless cycle of fighting and abuse and this narcissistic vortex that you just get sucked and hoovered into. So, theoretically, the gray rock technique should work, and after all, there's no reason why you can't just ignore them and not respond back to them when they send barrages of calls and emails and texts. And only speak to them when it's absolutely necessary. Like if you're going through a divorce, you really shouldn't have to speak with them, but I get it, you got to talk to them about some things. Or if you share children. So unfortunately, interpersonal relationship problems, it's not so simple to just go no contact or gray rock, because they want your attention. That's what they want more than anything. It is their livelihood, it is their lifeline, their way of breathing and living is to seek and get your attention. So it sounds kind of like, if someone has a drinking problem, it's just stop drinking. Well, okay. Or if someone says, well, if he's hitting you, then just leave. This strategy doesn't always work. You can't just stop drinking. You can't just leave because they hit you. So the strategy doesn't work for other types of abusive relationships. So why do we expect it to work with a narcissist? So not to mention, we can talk about how insulting it is for an abuse victim to simply turn themselves into this boring shell of a person you get addicted to, and you become so in tune with the highs and the lows of what you experience to just completely become someone who you're not, and just, oh, I'm not affected anymore. That simply, it doesn't just work overnight like that. You can't avoid the wrath of a narcissist because they're poking you and triggering you. So it's true where there's situations where you simply cannot remove the narcissist from your life due to maybe employment obligations or having children with them or having to go through a divorce or whatever you still have to communicate with them involved to. So ignoring them is not always the best revenge. It actually should be, a resort that you have in mind, but in these situations where you have no other choice, it can't be your go-to strategy. So chances are the narcissist in your life has spent months or years or even decades in some cases hurting you every single chance that they got, and they manipulate your emotions into believing that they are the victim and you are the bad guy. And so in your mind, you really truly believe this. I'm the narcissist. I'm the bad guy. I hurt them. Look at all these things I did to them that they always bring to mind. Yeah, I did do all those things. And so you feel like you are the bad guy, even when you bring up situations where they clearly harmed you. So you have this moment of clarity, and you start to identify their manipulative behavioral patterns. And it's very, very natural when you start to identify this to crave revenge. And they have made you suffer through horrible emotions like feeling worthless, feeling guilty, shame, all for the crime of you just simply wanted to be loved and you wanted to be respected just like any human deserves, and to their benefit nonetheless. So who wouldn't want to naturally inflict harm and hurtful emotions back onto someone who has caused you to feel like that? It's very natural emotion to want to seek revenge, but it's important to remember that this approach won't work, because what you're hoping and striving to accomplish and to appeal the narcissist's emotions, assuming that they would want the same for you. But emotions are simply tools. They're tools that the narcissist uses to manipulate others, and they react to things in order to elicit a specific reaction from you. They know exactly where your buttons and where your triggers are. So don't be fooled, though, however, when they sprinkle in and go through the cycle of the love bombing and then the discard and the devaluing. They know everything, every step, every comment, every move is specifically calculated to get to you. Their emotions, the ones that seem loving, they're never genuine. They're doing that because they know how to get to you, and they know that triggers inside of you this deep desire and need to feel loved, and they know if they can make you feel like that, they can get what they want from you. And they use your emotions against you later. Anytime you open up and you become vulnerable to them, they use that against you later. They put it in their back pocket, and it's a bullet in the gun that they use against you later. That's why ignoring them won't work. So if you've been in alcohol rehab yourself or know anyone who has, it's very, very similar. I have lots of clients who have been through that themselves or have been with the narcissist that they've gone through that. You know that you can't stop drinking, but keep a bottle of wine in the cabinet for when guests come over or for cooking or whenever. Like, I don't drink, but I'm fine if my friends do, so I have a glass of wine. If you are a recovering alcoholic, you can't have alcohol in the house. And in fact, I see one of my clients on here who has been in that. They'd probably laugh at that and go, yep. So just like alcoholism, narcissistic abuse recovery can make a difference between sobriety and relapse, but you can't always ignore them. But before moving forward, you need to write off the idea that you will ever get the revenge that you're seeking. You want them to hurt just as badly as you have hurt. And you even want closure, and you feel like you can't move on unless you have closure. But many times in these relationships, you don't get closure because the abuse that you've suffered is at the hands of the narcissist. They're never going to say, you are right, I hurt you, I shouldn't have done that. And your revenge will be living, listen to this, your best revenge is living a happy, functioning, freeing life, free from the narcissistic abuse, free from their voice being in your head. That is revenge. It's the best possible revenge. That's it. That revenge, just living a freeing, happy life, where their voice is not in your head, is the one thing that will make you feel the best and is better revenge for any false sense of closure that you can get after you get back at the narcissist, because there is no getting back at the narcissist. So here are a couple of things that you need to know about ignoring the narcissist who ignores you. The oldest trick in the book is that doesn't work. Ignoring a narcissist who ignores you, especially if you've been discarded, and there's lots of books and websites out there that will tell you that that's the best way to deal with the narcissist, but the best thing that you can do to ignore the narcissist is hit them where it hurts. The one place that hurts the most is their ego. They are massively ego driven. So stop giving them their fix. Stop engaging with them. You stop giving them their fix and they're going to go somewhere else to get it. It's like a drug, and they used to come to you and you were their drug dealer. You were their source of supply. You say, hey buddy, got no more drugs for you. They're going to move on to another dealer, a new supply, because they need their fix. It's the only way that they live. But the problem with this approach is you are also hoping to get a fix out of this as well. So there's this brief moment of love and affection from the empty-hearted narcissist, and ignoring the narcissist who ignores you only encourages them to hoover even more. So you know that you want respect, you want dignity, you want love, and so they know this, and they will begin to exhibit behaviors that fool you into thinking, look, I really have changed, I'm going to counseling, I'm doing all these things, and I'm getting better. But these behaviors are completely contrived to suck you and hoover you back in. So there's this false compassion here that's entirely performative. They make this performance in this show. So narcissists do have empathy, but it's not emotional empathy. It's not the compassion that we normally associate when we hear this term empathy. There's this dangerous concept known as cognitive empathy. It's not emotional empathy, it's cognitive empathy. And it's frequently utilized by these torturous people who get inside their victim's head and manipulate their emotions for their own agenda. So there may be some time that's passed and you're mean abuser. You think, well, maybe they're no longer a narcissist. They're not doing these things anymore, but really they are. They're just not doing it to you. They've moved on and they're doing it to another source of supply. But after a short period of this phony love and remorse, the abusive, manipulative behavior just comes right back. So how to ignore a narcissist who's trying to punish you? Well, attempting to ignore the narcissist by using this gray rock method or going no response should never really be your first line of defense. It is a line of defense, but oftentimes it doesn't work. It increases the hoovering techniques and ways of trying to bait you and suck you back in. And so these techniques actually don't do anything but feed the narcissist cycle of abuse. So here's a couple steps that you can take to implement into your recovery program without allowing them to hoover you or suck you back in. So the first one is stop trying to ignore them, just go no contact. And just like the alcohols, you can't be a recovering alcoholic and keep wine in the kitchen. You have to completely eliminate it. And this is the first one. If you can go no contact, absolutely, it's the only permanent solution. You have to end the communication in the relationship for good. Don't leave any windows or loopholes for text messages or like, hey, can you help me out with this, or block them or unblock them. Completely cut them out. And then the second one is realize your attachment to the relationship. They were not the only ones in the relationship. You were in this relationship too. So to get to the place of healing and to stop engaging with them, you need to take a look within yourself and see, what were you getting out of this relationship? Why did you stay for so long? Because we tend to crave the rare affection that we got from this narcissist like a drug for us. So we crave that. There's something within us that kept us in this relationship, that kept us dismissing these red flags and seeing them and just going, well, it's okay. And there's never enough to satisfy that love, but they breadcrumb it and they sprinkle it, and there's something within you that was okay with that. So recognizing what is within you, and then don't blame yourself. Gotta stop blaming yourself. I think that's one of the biggest things, is we constantly blame ourselves. And the narcissist does not experience emotions like you do. And so you are processing and experiencing your emotions, and you're thinking, if they would just get it, if they could just see how amazing I am, and they would just change. They don't process emotions and experiences the same way you do. So when they hurl insults, they are purposely trying to hit you and strike you where it hurts, because that's what gives them satisfaction. And you, on the other hand, feel like, I would never do that to them because I love them. How could they do that to me? So don't believe them when they say that they didn't do that. No, they did do that. And you deserve to be treated with respect. And responding to their insults and trying to get them to see the way that they hurt you only sucks you back in and only allows the cycle of abuse to continue. Next thing after don't blame yourself is admit. Admit that you need help. And it is okay. I think one of the hardest things for people is to admit, I can't do this alone. If you could do it alone, you would. Because obviously that'd be the easiest method. But you need help. It's kind of like drug and alcohol recovery. You can't do this alone without relapsing. And I've worked with so many people who are like, I've left 10 times, 11 times, I've left 20 times. We've gotten divorced and then we got remarried. What is wrong with me? First of all, you're blaming yourself. Second of all, there's something there. You need help to break back so you don't continue in the same cycle of abuse. That's where therapy comes in. Surrounding yourself by positive and supportive people to figure this out, get to the root cause of it, and then identify your limitations. We're all human, so we all have limitations. So if the narcissist in your life is a coworker, there's a limitation because you have to work with them. If they are a parent, there's a limitation. They're my parents, I still have to see them on holidays. Maybe they're not people that are a partner or a spouse that you can just cut out completely or divorce. There are certain situations where the gray rock and no contact or minimal contact are acceptable, but only given straightforward answers when absolutely necessary, like one-word answers, like, okay. And then don't go into, and you made me feel, because then that's making you the victim and putting the power in their hands. But if you still need a strategy to avoid the narcissist and hoovering, then your own relapse is what you want to avoid. Then gray rock or limited contact comes into play. But then you need to consider implementing other tools, and that's where monitoring communication apps comes in, using email like a third-party buffer between you and the narcissist. They have some clients who are going through a divorce, and as you know, narcissists will use their children as pawns, so they use a third party, the therapist. But be careful, because therapists can become triangulated in that too. Keep your interactions minimal, keep them robotic like they should be, keep them very business-like, leave the emotion out of it. So then get help to answer the questions who, what, where, when, how, why, and who did you get involved with, how did you get involved in them, when did you get involved in them, why did you get involved in them, why did you stay, and then work on all those feelings to heal from within, and releasing the shame, the anger, the doubt, releasing the thought of I just need to get revenge on them. They hurt me so bad, and I'm going to make them hurt just as bad as I have. All that's going to do is keep you stuck in that cycle. So Thank you guys. I'm here. I love sharing information and guiding you towards your healing because it has a much bigger impact. It often impacts where you're going in life, your motivation, your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth, and especially this comes into play when you start to date after having been in a toxic and unhealthy relationship. All these things will definitely come back and they will show their ugly head, and you'll go, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, even if you're out of the relationship. So here to help and work with you guys. I love connecting. So thank you as always for watching this video, and I look forward to connecting soon.